Hi, I'm going to be reading a children's book today called Lost Treasure by Tutu B. Jones. That's me, Becca L. Jones as Tutu B. Okay, so this is a true story about my grandpa, and I thought it was super cute, so I had to write it. When two people love each other, nothing can stand in their way. Aren't they cute? I love the illustrations. Thank you to Joshua Duke. He was the illustrator for this book. Okay, are you ready? Let's read this. Okay, here's the picture for the first one. All right. Sitting at the kitchen table, Grandma was sipping her coffee as she listened to Grandpa singing a song while he counted pennies. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, close the door. 5, 6, pick up sticks. 7, 8, lay them straight. 9, 10, big fat hen. Grandma smiled at Grandpa. She liked that Grandpa saved every single penny he could. He had a great big blue 5-gallon jug that he put the pennies into. The jug was filled halfway full, and he always said he was saving money for a rainy day. Grandpa said to Grandma, "Ma, I have saved a large chunk of money so that you and I could take a trip together." Grandma chuckled as she said, "You mean with all those pennies? That will not get us very far. Maybe it'll get us across the street, but no further than that." Grandpa replied, "No, Ma, I'm serious. I have a large stash of money put away." Grandma looked at him with loving eyes. They had not been on a trip together in a very long time, and it would be nice to get away together. She asked, "What money? Where did it come from?" Grandpa said, "For years I took just a little bit of money from each paycheck and put it away. I stuck it in a big coffee can, and now the can is full." Grandma looked at him. Then she burst out in laughter. She said, "You did not!" Grandpa's face got red. He said, "I'm not joking. I have $15,000 saved for a trip." Grandma laughed and laughed. She could not believe he had saved that much money, and he wanted to spend it all on a nice trip for the two of them. Grandma looked at Grandpa and asked, "Pa, are you serious?" He had a serious look on his face as he said, "Yes, I hid the can so no possum or raccoon could get into it." Grandma stood up from the table and thought for a moment. All these years they had been married, and he had never told her he was saving money for a trip. It was such a surprise. She looked him in the eyes and said, "Okay, prove it. Show me your stash of money." Grandpa stood up and went to the cupboard. He pulled out the step stool and climbed up the steps to reach above the cabinets. He felt around with his hand, but all his fingers found were large dust balls. He looked at Grandma. She was staring at him with a smirk on her face and folded arms. He climbed down the steps and carried the step stool to the other side of the cupboards. He climbed up the steps and again reached above the cabinets, but all he found was more dust bunnies. Without saying a word, he climbed back down the steps and walked into the living room, and Grandma followed him. He looked inside the fireplace. He looked on the bookshelf. He looked in a pile of old newspapers stacked in the corner, but he did not find the can of money. Grandpa looked at Grandma and he suddenly went sheet white. He said, "Oh, Ma, I remember I moved the money." He had an honest, fearful expression on his face, and Grandma finally believed him. Grandma said, "Okay, where is it?" Grandpa thought for a minute. "I must have moved the money when we were planning the big get-together with family and friends. I did not want anyone to find it." Grandma was nervous as she asked, "What did you do with the money?" All was silent in the kitchen. Then he said, "I buried it." Come on, just a second. Finn wants to be a part of this. Hi. Okay. "You what?" Grandma crisply asked. "I buried it," Grandpa said. "Where?" she replied. Grandpa said, "I buried it in the yard somewhere." Grandma smiled as she said, "Okay, go find it." Grandpa walked out in the yard, scratching his head, and looked around. He grabbed the shovel leaning against the side of the house and started digging. Grandma followed him outside and stood on the top step. She waited for him to pull out the can of money, but the money and the can were not there. Grandpa took 2 steps forward, scratched his head, and put the shovel to the dirt to dig again. He then took 2 steps forward, scratched his head, and put the shovel to the dirt to dig again. As Grandma watched him scratch and dig, she had a feeling that Grandpa did not know where that money was. Grandma did not say anything. Instead, she walked into the house and paced the kitchen floor. Then she poured herself another cup of coffee. She sat at the kitchen table and tried to stay calm. Grandma thought about all that money being lost. It was a lot of money to lose. Grandma looked out the large bay window and watched Grandpa in his bib overalls with no shirt on. He had a big straw hat to keep the sun off his face as he kept digging holes all over the yard. Grandpa looked worried. So did Grandma. After a while, Grandma peeked her head out the doorway, and shaking her finger at Grandpa, she said, "You better find that money." Then she closed the door. It was starting to get dark outside, and after dozens of holes in the yard, Grandpa was tired. He finally gave up digging holes. He then checked inside the shed for the tin can, but no money was there. He looked inside the grill, he looked in the bird bath, flower bed, and the doghouse, but that money was nowhere to be found. He even looked inside a large hole on the side of a tree, but no money was there. Grandpa was sad he had lost his savings. He knew he would be in the doghouse with the dog if he did not find it. Grandpa finally walked in the house and took off his straw hat. He hung his head as he felt defeated. He had wanted to surprise his beautiful wife with a wonderful vacation, but that would not happen. Grandma was sitting at the kitchen table, holding her cup of coffee. She looked at Grandpa and asked, "Did you find the money?" Grandpa replied no. He looked so sad. Grandma smiled sweetly as she said, "Well, no vacation for us then." Grandpa, with a straw hat in hand and his dirty, filthy overalls, he slowly walked toward the table where Grandma was. He said, "I wanted to surprise you with this trip." He was about to sit down at the table when Grandma stood up. She smiled lovingly and said, "Pa, come here." She opened her arms wide to welcome him in her arms. They hugged tightly as Grandma said, "I do not care about a vacation or that you lost that money. You mean so much more to me than money or any vacation. I love you, and I'm happy right where we are, staying home and spending time together as a family." With tears in his eyes and a smile on his face, Grandpa pulled her even more tightly to him and said, "I love you too." Then he grabbed her hand, put his straw hat back on his head, and walking toward the door together, he said, "Let's go out and eat some ice cream." Then he started singing his favorite song, "I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream." The end. I hope you liked it. I will be reading another children's book for next week. Thanks and have a great day.